Hi friend, today I have lots of thrift store makeovers to share with you. These are some fun projects and I can't wait to get started. My name is Cindy and I'm with ReinventedDelaware.com. We love to upcycle and repurpose home decor and furniture, and then we love to share those projects with you here on YouTube as well as over on our blog, ReinventedDelaware.com. Today's video, we're going to be making over some items that I recently found while out thrifting in the lower end of Delaware. I'll be sure to link that video so you can go back and see the goodies that I found, and then today how I'm transforming them into vintage inspired pieces for our home. If you're anything like me, you love to find items at the thrift store that you can make over for your own home. Now, you also might like to find things that you can make over and sell in your vendor booth, and I hope that the ideas that you see here will inspire you to go thrift shopping and then to bring those items home and make them over into something new. When I'm doing thrift store makeovers inside, I like to lay out a protective cardboard over top of my craft table. I have this big craft table that my husband built for me. I love it and I want to protect it. So I get a box from Walmart and I open it up so that it will lay flat, and I've used it over and over. The great thing about the box is that you can store it anywhere. I tuck it behind my vintage filing cabinet here in my craft room, so it's away when I don't need it, and then it's easy to pull out when I need it. And it's big enough that I can even place a piece of furniture over it and do the makeover right there on the floor, and then I've got my floor protected, and there you go. So there's a tip for you. Do you love to paint? Painting is one of my favorite things to do. And yes, I could spray paint this urn, but I'm not so much of a fan of spray paint. Now, a lot of you might be, because you might be thinking, oh, well, it's just faster to spray paint than it is to use a paintbrush. And that might be true. I mean, maybe spray paint is a lot faster, but I really enjoy holding a paintbrush. I enjoy the process of making over things, taking my time, listening to either a podcast or an audio book, or sometimes you'll see even later on, I watch YouTube while I'm doing my makeovers. So that's one of the reasons that I enjoy using a paintbrush. Let me know down in the comments if you could spray paint or if you could use a paintbrush. Which would you choose? This little container of roses I thought was really pretty. The greenery looked in pretty good shape. I mean, it's dirty, but it was in pretty good shape. And I thought the little delicate roses were cute, and I loved the color. I wasn't so crazy about the actual pot. It was probably a very popular look, but you know me, I like change. I just like to change things. So I don't have to do too much to this. I did have to clean the faux greenery and the faux flowers. Grab yourself a microfiber cloth and just water alone, and you will be surprised how the microfibers in that cloth literally grab the dirt off of anything. I love these cloths so much. I also did a special little thing to these faux flowers you'll see later in the video, but first I'm going to tackle this pot and just change it. I removed the grapevine wreath around the floral arrangement, and I'm going to use it later on for this pot, so hang on to that. But I'm also inspired by this grapevine wreath that surrounds the roses, so hang on to that idea because I'm kind of stealing that idea for another project later in this video. This natural bristle brush is very good for a dry brush kind of treatment. It has like an angled tip, so there are lots of ends of the paint bristles. I don't know how to describe it, but it makes dry brushing very easy. So I did that to the pot first, and I was like, I didn't really like it. So I went back in, I got more paint on my paintbrush, and I just filled it all in. Do you remember those fruit that we painted a couple of weeks ago? We upcycled some plastic fruit from the thrift store, and it had the same texture, and we did like a gradiated look. I'll try to pop in a little picture. It was so cute, and that was kind of my idea here. So of course I painted it in one color and I got the other color out to started that's graduated look, and then I realized it kind of looked like moss. So I just went with that idea. I added this green color on top, and some places were darker and some places were lighter because the lighter color chalk paint that I'm using is still damp. So then when I put the darker green on top, it starts to mix a little bit and creates this whole new shade. So I really like that. Then I dried off most of the paintbrush and I dabbed back over some of the areas that were kind of harsh looking, like a harsh line from the tip of the paintbrush, and it just kind of softened it. You saw me put the first coat of paint on that urn and it was dried, and now it's time for the second coat. And while I was painting the second coat, you'll see in the background I was actually watching one of my videos because it was a premiere. And I don't know if you know, but if you watch a video on YouTube that's premiered, you can chat with the creator there on the right hand side. See all that yellow highlight on my computer there in the background? Well, that is me chatting with other people that are watching the video. It's a lot of fun, and I hope that you can watch this video in the premiere and we can chat about it. If you watch it in the replay, go ahead and comment and I will comment back to you. I need some supplies from Ace Hardware. I don't feel like waiting 2 days or even 1 day for Amazon to deliver it. I don't know. Do you get impatient? Whoops. Turn that volume down. Woo, it's warm in the car. Sometimes I'm willing to wait for supplies to get here, and sometimes I'm not. So if I waited and got the thing at Amazon, yes, it would save me some money, but it would cost me in time. So there's that. So I'm just going to run to Ace, and I'm going to get the next supply that I need for that little bird cage, and also for the little birds. That's not a bird cage. What is that thing? It's a lantern. I called it a bird cage. It's a lantern. Excuse me. I think while I'm there, I might get a Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee decaf mocha. So we'll see. We're back from Ace. I've got my clear coat and I've got my decaf iced coffee with mocha in it, and I'm going to enjoy that. Now those little birds that I filled in earlier, they're salt and pepper shakers, so I had to fill in those holes. Went out there and I sanded off the area, you know, the raised area. Now they didn't turn out so good, so keep watching to see if I can get that problem solved. In the meantime, I clear coated this whole little bird, not a bird cage. I keep calling it a bird cage. It's not. It's like a lantern. I paid like $3 for the thing, but it is rusted, and a clear coat over top will help it to prevent rusting anymore. Of course, it held a candle at one time, and I wanted to get rid of that ring. I didn't like how it looked anyway, so I just grabbed my pliers and pulled it out. So back to these birds. So you can see here that you can still see the little divot from the, you know, because it was a salt and pepper shaker. So I'm going to try again to fill those holes and sand it out again. We'll see if I can manage to get that done. And now on to painting. So yep, the clear coat is dry, and I grabbed my paintbrush and I just started covering it with this other color that I have here. It's like a soft linen color. Now on the inside, I had a hard time with that larger paintbrush. So I grabbed one of these little artist brushes, and I could get into all the nooks and crannies a little easier with the small paintbrush. And then I got on the outside, and I mostly kept a dry brush, and I did a lot of dabbing, because I didn't want runs, you know, on the other side, on the inside of it. And that just seemed to help if I dabbed it the most. This was a lot of fun to do. I know some of you, like I said, maybe you would prefer to spray paint it. I just like to paintbrush stuff. The other reason that I like a paintbrush is that you can get texture. Now my chalk paint is kind of dried out, which means it's really thick. And if you don't want it to be thick, you just spray some water, stir it in, and it thins it right out. but I wanted it thick because I like the texture that you can add with really thick chalk paint and a paintbrush. You just do that by putting it on a heavy coat and dabbing it, and you have instant texture. All right, let's turn these little salt and pepper shakers into something else. I added another layer of that filler, and then I sanded them down again, and I didn't quite get it exactly the way I want it, but you know what? Sometimes you have to say good enough is good enough. So I added the second coat of paint, and I called it a day for those sweet little birds. You're probably noticing that I jump from project to project, and I think I mentioned this in just about every video that we have, and I think a lot of you do the same thing. You put a coat of paint on one thing, well, you need something to do while it's drying. You got to find some other thing to work on, so you jump to the next project. This is my favorite way to work. On these roses, while that urn is drying with that pretty gold paint, we're onto these roses, and I found this great way to really liven them up. So I already cleaned them, you know, I did the pot, then I got this spray wax and I just sprayed over the whole thing, and it just freshened them up. These roses and the greenery look like new now. I was so impressed, and now I want to go get all kinds of greenery, faux greenery at the store, at the thrift store, and make it look fresh again with this spray wax. I'm going to have all the items, all the supplies that I use. I'll have everything linked down below in the description, and stay tuned. I'll show you how to get to the description in case you don't know. Do you ever do one technique to a project and then realize later you didn't really like it that much? Well, that kind of happened with these birds, so stay tuned to see what I finally do with them. I have a collection of transfers with a lot of leftovers. These transfers come with 4 sheets, and I can never seem to use all 4 sheets on one project. So I have leftover pieces here and there, and they're perfect for smaller projects like this lantern. So I had already used this transfer on a project in a recent video. I'll pop in a picture right here. And I had some of it left over, so I decided to use it on this lantern. And you can see with these transfers, you can cut the pieces apart and kind of reconfigure them to make them work for whatever project you have. I put 2 coats of that gold metallic paint on parts of this urn, and I am loving it. Now the color is a little harsh, but we're going to take care of that. It's a little bit on the brassy side, and I'm not crazy about that look, but we're going to take care of it, so hang on. And in the meantime, let's get out some aggression with some distressing. I don't know, maybe I'm not even supposed to say that word on YouTube, so I might have to bleep that word out, but you can see what I'm doing. I'm using the edge of it to scrape off bits and pieces of the paint. It works amazing. It looks so authentic when you use this technique to distress a piece and to age it. Then I grab my dust buster. Listen, you need one of these in your craft room. If you don't have a dust buster close by, get one. They're so handy. Here's the technique I use to dull down that brassy look of the gold paint. It's antiquing wax. I mean, it's got that dark brown color, and it ages it perfectly in my opinion. So I did all the gold, and I wasn't going to do the painted area, but I thought, hey, what the heck, let's go for it. So I grabbed that natural bristle brush and just went over the whole thing, and I'm so glad that I did. This piece turned out so pretty in the end. I can't wait for you to see the whole project of this urn. I think it's my favorite project. I love the look of this antique wax so much that I couldn't help myself, and I just grabbed the next thing closest to me. I applied a layer of the antique wax, and then I used that paper towel to buff it back. This look, oh my goodness, it looks so pretty. You're going to love the final look of these projects. The next day, I headed to the craft room and I grabbed those shelving brackets. And I'm excited to do this project because these shelving brackets were free. I love to get free things, especially this pretty. So in that video where I show, where I got these shelving brackets and I talk about that, someone commented that they believed that they were from Home Interiors. I thought they were a little bit older than that, but maybe they're not, and I'm going with it. I think they're from Home Interior, so we're going to tackle them. I love the gold look, but not as they stand. So I grabbed two of those paints, and I have the gold one, and I have like a pewter color. You'll see what we're going to do with that pewter color, but in the meantime, I need to put 2 coats of the gold color on the shelving brackets. Now, of course, I've got to shift to another project while that dries, and we're back to this gorgeous urn. I am not a flower arranger, so that's not what I'm using that floral foam for, but I am going to use it for this. So remember that grapevine wreath from the roses? Well, that inspired me to make my own little grapevine wreath. So I went out to our little grape arbor. I got a couple of branches and I made my own grapevine wreath with the leaves still on it. They'll dry beautifully. And then I got some wire and I attached it down into that floral foam along with some of that moss. This is such a pretty look. Really am loving how this is going to look with the little birds. Aren't they so cute? So cute. Now, I had white waxed those birds, but while I was in my dark wax frenzy, I also dark waxed these little birds and I like them much better. So I grabbed my glue gun, I put a couple of little dollops of glue just to hold them steady, and there you go. I can't wait for you to see the final result. I talked about my craft table earlier, and it's a great table. I'm loving the surface, but I don't have a good stool to sit at, so I've been on the hunt. I found this one. It was $6, but it's a little plain. So I grabbed that sander, and I did a scuff sand on the base, and then on the seat, I sanded it down completely to bare wood. Then I spray painted that base with a clear coat shellac, because I want the paint to stick, and there is a bit of a shiny surface. I didn't sand it down to bare wood, and I want to make sure that this paint sticks really, really well to this shiny surface. The color that I'm using is called Umber. It's this gorgeous, rich, dark chocolate color. Oh, I'm just loving it so much. While the first coat dries on the bar stool, I'm back to these shelves, and this is where I'm using this pewter color, and I'm going back and forth between the gold and that pewter color, and I'm adding just little bits of the silver here and there and the little bits of the gold here and there, and using the 2 different brushes to blend them together slightly. I want some variation, but I don't want it to be harsh, so I'm using both paint brushes to blend it. This is the method that I use to clean every paintbrush that I use. I first of all rinse them really well in my laundry room sink, and then I grab this scrubby soap. Now this is a citrus-based soap that's good for your hands. You don't have to worry about your hands at all. And it has a Scrub Daddy material kind of infused with the soap. So you can rub your paintbrush over top of that scrubby soap, and it will lather up, and then it will also help to scrub off the paint. And then I work that soap really well into the bristles, and I rinse and rinse and rinse until the water runs clear to make sure all of the soap is rinsed out. Then I grab a paper towel and I just wrap around the base of that paintbrush, and I tilt them so that they are at an angle and all the moisture will run down, and I let them dry completely. Now, I have an investment in my paintbrushes. I want to take care of them, and this is the best way to do it in my opinion. You can also use the scrubby soap to clean off all the paint that you get on your hands. I don't like using gloves. I like having my hands bare when I'm painting, but I get messy, and this scrubby soap is perfect to clean up my hands as well. I'll have this soap linked down in the description and also in the first comment so that you can grab some for your craft room. These silver chafing dishes come in all sorts of sizes, but I've never seen one this size before. I've seen other sizes of rectangles that are usually larger. I've seen them round. I've seen lots of these. You can pick them up for $3 or $4. And I saw this one, and it was actually $3 on sale. It was $2.98 on sale for $1.98, so I got a good deal. And I'm going to do something unusual with it. You'll see as we move along. Initially, I was going to get a cutting board, a small size cutting board, and mount it to the top to make a riser. That's a really pretty project. I love making those. But this time, I decided to do something different at the last minute. I'm going to use mine in a very unconventional way. And I started off by making a template so that I knew that it could fit inside of the frame of this chafing dish. Then I grabbed my watercolor tablet, and the back piece of cardboard on it is very stiff, like a heavy duty tag board, and I cut it out to fit on the inside. And I had to do a lot of adjusting, cutting off a little here and a little there, and I didn't do the greatest job cutting this, so I might have to go back and change it. I don't know. I also have another plan for this chafing dish that would probably work better than what I'm doing here. So I'll share that in a few minutes. But in the meantime, I just went ahead and I cut it off to make it fit on the interior of this chafing dish the best that I could. I got a little frustrated cutting out that tag board and trying to get it to line up and fit inside just perfectly. So I put it aside and decided to do something a little bit more rewarding, like polishing silver. So I grabbed Earth Bright and the scrubby pad that comes with it. I put a little bit on the pad, and then I rub it all over the silver piece after I've gotten it wet. This stuff works great on copper, on brass, and on silver. It's easy to use. It's not hard on your hands. It doesn't have a terrible smell like some of the products do, and you don't have to worry about tearing up your skin either. So I just used it all over best I could, and then I rinse it off with hot water, and it really does create a beautiful surface. Now, some of you might be upset that I'm polishing silver, but the great thing about silver, as with a lot of the metals like copper, before long, you've got another patinaed look. So if you like it polished, that's great. And if you would rather have it vintage looking, just wait a couple of weeks and you'll have it vintage looking all over again. Here's the tag board that will fit inside that chafing dish, and I've already got the first coat of paint on, and I'm applying a second coat of the paint. And remember, I said that this paint was really thick because mine has started to dry out a little bit. Well, that's great to create this texture, so I just applied it with deliberate brush strokes as well as deliberate high spots. I didn't want a smooth finish. I wanted the texture to show. Since the paint is so thick and I really applied it heavy, it's going to take a while to dry. So we're on to the next thing. Back to these shelving brackets that are completely dry now with those two colors of paint. And yep, I'm pulling out that dark wax again. I got to tell you, I am loving the dark wax over this metallic paint. It looks so good. I know that I'm going to be doing more projects with this technique. I really love how it looks. All you do is apply the wax, make sure you work it down into all the nooks and crannies. Then you take a paper towel and you just buff it off lightly, and it creates this really beautiful aged patina kind of look on something that looked pretty rough at the beginning. You saw it at the beginning, it was all chipped off, but look here at the difference between the antique wax on the one and then one on the left without the antiquing. Really big difference. Onto the stool. Now I did have this leftover transfer from another project. I actually put a transfer on a cloth purse that I thrifted a while ago. I will pop in a picture right here so you can see that. But I had this piece left over, and I knew that it would be really pretty on the natural wood along with that gorgeous umber color that I have the stool painted in. You know, transfers are easy to apply. You just place it down where you want it to be. you remove the backing, and then you use the stick that comes along with it and you rub over the design, and it transfers onto the surface, whatever you're applying it. Now, I wanted it to curve around the curve of this, the sides of this bar stool top, and I just carefully worked around and lifted and moved around. So you just have to kind of work with this a little bit, be patient with it, and as you're using that transfer stick, if you go to lift it up and you see that some has not adhered to the surface, just lay it back down, use the tool, go back over it, and before you know it, you'll be all the way done. Now, the corners of this design, I'm not done with those yet. I'm not going to waste them. In fact, I placed them around the edges of this bar stool to fill in the spaces where the transfer was not wide enough to reach. And it worked out perfect. You can't even tell that it wasn't part of the original design. And I also like the fact that I'm using every single bit of this transfer that I possibly can, because I am budget minded, and this is a great way to use up every single bit of that transfer. Once I'd gone all the way around the edges and I used up every bit of the transfer that I could, I used my hand and I just smoothed over the whole thing to make sure everything was stuck down. Then I grabbed some white wax and I just gave it a nice protective coat right over top. Now, I like the look of the white wax on this, but I'm wondering, do you think I should go back over it with the dark wax? Do you think it would look better aged a little bit more than what it looks right now with the dark wax? Let me know down in the comments, and I might give that a try if you think I should do dark wax. While I had that transfer out, I thought it would look really pretty on this piece of cardboard that I'm going to be using for the chafing dish. So I grabbed what I could, and there was just a little section of it left over. In fact, that was the top section of the transfer for the bar stool. And I just laid it at a catty corner and just applied it. Now, I really like this design a lot. I like the idea of having this flat surface inside the chafing dish. You'll see what I'm going to be using it for here shortly. But let me mention, I don't think I would use the tag board again. I think instead I would ask my husband to cut out a piece of Luan. Luan is about 1/4 of an inch thick, and it is durable, especially for what I would be using it for. And it would be easy to cut. Now, I'd have to get that pattern exact. It's not as forgiving as cardboard would be, but in some ways that would be a good thing. And it would be a band saw. This would have to be cut with a band saw, not a circular saw. This would be a very precise cut. So this may or may not work for you if you're using it. If you decide to use tag board, what I would recommend instead of what I did is do several layers of the tag board and glue them together after you have them cut. And I think that that would give a much sturdier surface than what I have. In fact, I might go back and add another layer of the tag board underneath this and just glue it on a couple of times. I mean that I would glue on several layers of the tag board to make the bottom of this even stiffer. I hope you enjoyed all of those projects. Now listen, I need your help on that last one. The brackets with the plate that I'm gonna hang. Should I hang it over in the dining room? Should I hang it over near our kitchen island? I'm not sure. You let me know your thoughts of where I should display those shelf brackets. Before we go, I want to invite you to join our Facebook group, Recreate and Decorate with Reinvented Delaware. We're a group of like-minded, thrift-loving, makeover-loving kind of people, and I would love for you to join me over there, join all of us over there, because I want to see the projects that you make over. And if you make over something that you see that you're inspired by this video, I want to see it, and that's the best way to share it with me. I'll leave the link down below to join that Facebook group, and I want to see you over there. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you are inspired to go thrift store shopping and then to make over some of the items that you find at your local thrift store. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Before we go, I want to enjoy you. Before we go, I want to invite you to join our Facebook group of who? I don't know. Why did I say that? Start over. I would like, blah, blah, blah. I want to invite you to join our Facebook group. Over on Facebook, well, of course, because it's a Facebook group. Oh my gosh. And then we're gonna start the whole thing, scratch that whole thing. We're starting from the beginning. No, don't say that. That's done.